My name is Piotr Wendeker. I work as a senior kernel developer at Wolfram Research. And today I'm gonna give some recent updates in import, export, and data connection. This is the outline. I will start from Markdown format, then move to JSON lines, and next to log formats, and then I will present some other updates to import export that are already available in the latest 14.3 release of Wolfram Language. And in the next section, I will present changes that are coming in version 15. And I will finish with updates to data connections. All right, so Markdown. Markdown format was introduced recently in 14.2, if I'm not mistaken, but in version 14.3, we introduced new import elements. Now it's very easy to import Markdown documents as Wolfram Language notebooks, as shown here. It's enough to call import with a notebook object element. This is not the default import element. The default is plain text. It is also possible to export notebooks to Markdown documents. So let's take this notebook that contains some text sections and some graphics elements. And I will just call export on that notebook object and get the Markdown file. This is the snippet of the few lines from the Markdown file. And we can get that file back as a notebook. Looks almost identical. However, some of the output cells are actually images. Obviously, we cannot store these elements in Markdown, so they were exported as images, such as this slider or this plot. Markdown is integrated in the front end so that you can very easily open Markdown file, just go to the main menu and use File, Open, and choose Markdown files as a file type. And it will open as a notebook, a Wolfram notebook. Similarly, you can save notebooks as a Markdown files. Obviously, keep in mind that this is lossy, as I just shown. Many output expressions will be converted to images. But you can do it using, again, File, Save As, and choose Markdown as the format of the document. Finally, you can generate Markdown fragments basically from each cell in a notebook. So here is one example. I have a table, tabular object. You can just select cell brackets and do copy as Markdown, and you get the Markdown string. That's not all about Markdown. I will give some updates what's coming in 15, but what I just described is already available in 14.3. So let's move on to JSON lines. This is a new tabular format introduced in 14.3. Basically, what's in the file, it consists multiple of JSON objects, one per file, and each line represents individual data row. The default element is tabular. Here is the example import of the JSON lines file. Export also works. So this is let's use this small tabular, and you can just export it. Well, here I'm exporting it to a string, but you can obviously export it to a file. And you get the JSON lines out. Log formats in 14.3 we introduced an updated log formats. Apache log was rewritten, basically improved, and a few new import elements were added. We also decided to change the default import element to be a tabular, so it's faster, and now it returns tabular by default. You have to specify the format because there is no by default. It won't be recognized this file as Apache log, so you need the format for import. But again, you get the nice tabular. For this particular format, this is quite a generic implementation. We have a data format option that allows to read the data basically from an arbitrary log format. In this example, I'm using data format is basically a string template describing each column that should be returned from this file. And notice with less than 5 seconds, I can import more than 600,000 rows and 7 columns from this cloud platform log file. So basically, if you have a log file that by default doesn't import, you can try using data format, and you should be able to get the data. There were 2 other log formats introduced: common log and extended log. Both of these formats have fixed column names, so we don't need any additional options. If you have your data in this format, then just call import with common log or extended log. Again, the default element is tabular. Okay, other import-export updates. In these slides, again, I'm showing features that are already released. So let me start from updates to some tabular formats, but also Markdown. So these 4 formats have an export option called expression formatting function. So say I have, again, my 3 rows tabular representing 3 states, US states, and I export that to CSV. Notice that by default image, this is the flag column is exported to this string, just dash image dash. This is our default serialization of or conversion of something that is expression that is not a string to a string, because CSV format stores strings. So if for some reason you want a different representation of an image, you can use that option, expression formatting function. It can be any function that converts expression to a string. In And here is the example that I use spoken string. So, for example, the flag is now described as this one, basically the image and the properties of that image, and so on. All right, so that's about export option. Now Parquet and ORC, the popular tabular formats, now have an efficient partial row import. So let's take this Parquet file. I will demonstrate what I mean by efficient partial row import. This is 400 megabyte file. If we import all the data from the file, well, it takes 1.2 seconds, and by default, this is imported as tabular. And we have more than 12 million rows. But what if we are interested only in the first 100 rows? So this is the syntax. You have the span from 1 to 100 here. And well, it takes much less time, and we only get tabular with the first 100 rows. So that's what I mean by the efficient partial row import. Okay, quickly, a few other updates. AVIF was also recently added. It's an import. It's an image format that stores both static and animated images. Several tabular formats or formats that can store tabular data. We've added new import elements, including tabular time series association or tabular association. Database format got tabular import element, GPX tabular association. A few other updates, such as new import elements should count added to ODS, or new import options, skip lines, header lines in SXC. And finally, we improved MTX. We have a basically backend update which fixes reported bugs and also gives us up to 10 times speed improvements. Okay, so this was this is all about the features that were already released and what's coming in a few months, hopefully. So new import-export changes in 15.0. We are adding two new config file formats, TOML and YAML. TOML stands from Tom's Obvious Minimal Language, very popular file format for storing configuration information. It's used in Rust, Python, Julia to store package manifests. And as an example, I'm showing that we can import cargo TOML, so package manager for Rust, and from this GitHub project. And the default element is association, just showing this as a data set. It's basically nested association that represents the configuration stored in the cargo TOML file. YAML. This is a data serialization language, but commonly used also for configuration files. The most common use of YAML is I think the automation scripts, such as GitHub Actions. And this is one example. We can get the GitHub Action script from another open source project released by Wolfram Research. And again, we get nested association wrapped in dataset. You can, when I open the jobs element, you see all the definition for a given jobs depending on the platforms and so on. All right, so that's these were config formats, but we also have news about document formats. Jupyter notebooks import is coming in version 15.0. So IPYNB, that's how we call the format. It's basically JSON-based file formats that used for storing either IPython notebooks, but this is also probably better known as Jupyter notebooks. And there you go. Oh, okay. This, I'm sorry, I cannot actually evaluate this one in this build, but yes, this is coming. And similarly for Visual Studio Code notebooks, so Wolfram created Visual Studio Code extension for developing in Wolfram Language, and you can and the format that we use is VSNB, and this is also coming. You can import VSNB in 15.0. Another update that will probably come in 15.0 are import and export options. So for system symbols, you can use set options to set options, but if that mechanism didn't work for import and export, we are designing something that will work for these two functions. So basically, we are extending file format properties to contain two new elements, export options. Here I'm showing this for MP3, and import options association that shows the default values for import. So using file format properties, you can query for import and export options, and using set file format properties, you can actually set the options that will be used until the end of the session. So say I'm setting sample rate as an export options for MP3, and every time I export any audio expression to MP3, it will be resampled to 22,000, and that's what would be used by export, stored in MP3 file. Okay. Time series, event series, we are extending 25 file formats to have new import elements called time series and event series. This is mostly for tabular data. So here I have a CSV file. I can import the data stored in this file directly as time series object, and then I can plot it using this plot. You will hear more about time series and event series in this conference. Partial access import via column names. Until now, you would have to use indices, column indices to get the partial access, both rows and columns. But now in version 15, we're introducing partial column access via column names. So say I'm only interested in two columns, to import two columns from this CSV file. So that's how I specify basically list of strings, and I get back the tabular object only with these columns. I mentioned Markdown updates, so new import elements, hyperlinks, images, tables, and title will be added in version 15. We are also adding export to AVIF. And finally, we're making some backward incompatible change in a way we represent EXIF metadata. We are adding namespaces, which is this first column in this data set. So this is basically EXIF metadata will be more nested, but that basically fixes some of the issues, the design issues we had before. And again, we're using a different backend, so expect bug fixes and performance improvements. Okay, so that's last slide. Updates to data connection. So slightly changing the topic. I just finished the updates about import and export. Now switching to data connections. To remind everyone, we introduced data connection object in version 14.2. This is the mechanism that allows to retrieve data from a remote system and handles authentication and the data retrieval. And these data connection objects are accepted by import. So here I'm showing that you can execute SQL query using SQLite database, and that's the query, and basically import the data as a tabular. Okay, so this was added in 14.2, and now this is the current state. In 14.3 we have, this is the list of supported connections. So we have connections to file systems, 6 of them, and connections to relational databases. And SQLite is on this list. So that example should already work in 14.3. We are adding more. There will be 2 more connections to file systems, Azure File and Azure Table. But we are also adding new category connections to multidimensional databases, and we are hoping to get these 3: Databricks, Apache Pinot, and Snowflake. I would like to quickly mention that there is updated documentation for data connection. So data connection objects is documented on this page, but there is also a link to a guide page that lists all available connections directly from the data connection object, and each connection has its own dedicated page, such as this one. So this is basically ref connection and the name of the connection. So this is Amazon S3 with examples. And finally, possible future updates. Maybe you have some other ideas. Feel free to share it with us. This is what at some point we plan to add a connection to time series databases, including Apache Pinot and Timescale DB, connection via APIs, including astronomy data and weather data, probably more here. And finally, extend the language integration. So data connection object should be accepted by copy file, get, create archive, extract archive. Okay, so that was my last slide. Let's switch to Q&A. We have about 5 minutes.
We got another question here in chat. They say, is there VS Code integration? Do you have Excel integration?
Well, We have some connection, right? But Sean, maybe you know better.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but as far as VS Code integration goes, I know that we have code tools that is well integrated with VS Code, and I'm pretty sure that there is a language extension. I'm not a VS Code user, I'm a Sublime Text user, but in a similar way, you can get Wolfram Language support in VS Code. As far as Excel integration goes, we have very strong Excel import and export support, and tabular is supported in Excel.
Don't think you can ask questions by voice, unfortunately, but on Friday, I'm going to have the office hours, the sound and vision office hours. You can join, and there you can ask. You can basically you can ask questions by voice.
Yeah, office hours is a great idea. Also, feel free to message me on the conference portal, and I'd be happy to chat with you about that question further. And I also would have to agree with Bart here. That was a really wonderful talk. Thank you, Piotr.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Sean, for helping me here. Okay, but we still getting questions.
Okay, so I have already answered about DXF that it's on our list, but there's no timeline for it. So Wolfram XLS is the earlier version of Excel. There's XLSX as a separate format, which is the more modern Excel file types. We do support all versions of Excel files.
Right. So there is XLS and XLSX. There are two separate formats.
I see one in the chat panel. Any thoughts on Globus used by APS? And to be perfectly honest, I've never heard of that. Have you, Piotr?
I have not, but let me write this down.
Yes, I've also written it down, and we love getting suggestions like this because the data comes from you guys, and we're happy to extend that support. So we'll look into it. And plans for saving back to databases. Of course, there are plans for saving back to databases. That's quite a bit more complicated. Now, in Data Connection Object, the main goal right now is to be ingesting data from anywhere, and data in the wild is pretty messy often, and also data from different databases comes back as different types, and we're really focusing on making that a cohesive and integrated experience through tabular. And so we're putting a lot of emphasis on bringing in all these connections and making sure that all of that is consistent before we start writing to databases where we might have custom types or things that are not directly supported by the database, but it's absolutely coming. XLSB is supported. You would use the XLSX format.
Maybe we should add examples about that, right? If we don't have it, Sean.
It's in the extension list, and
I see. Okay, if we have it, then okay. All right, I think. Another comment from Jeff, which I didn't mention, but basically the part of image metadata updates added the support for AVM, which is the standard for astronomical image metadata. Yeah, so that's what Jeff was commenting about. Definitely will be on the list of new in 15. Not everything and shut this talk. Just the most prominent updates. Okay. Thank you again, and let's finish this session.